Building a well-working CS team is much harder than most people think it is. Some people might think we have to just put together 5 strong shooting players. But I will explain in this video what different factors you should take into account when trying to build a sustainable CS team. Let's start with the basics, the roles and the positions. In your team, you have 5 different players. One of them will be the in-game leader, who will be able to build a strat book, who will call in-game, and is usually somebody with good macro understanding and has some experience. Next to that, we have the dedicated AWPer, who's often rotating around the map, and then we will fill it up with 3 more riflers. Let's take Mirage as an example, just to discuss the positions. On Mirage CT side, we tend to have 2 anchor positions, A and B, and we tend to have 2 positions that are seen as star positions, connector and short. And then your AWP player usually starts window, but will rotate around the map and have different openings. Talking about the positions, your in-game leader usually will play one of the anchors, either the hard one, which is B-apps, or the soft one, which is A. So that leaves us with the 3 riflers needing to fill 3 positions, 2 star positions and 1 anchor. So this is what we'll be looking for in our team. However, there is some exceptions. Your IGL could be an AWPer, like Jame or Cadian, or you have some IGLs who prefer to play one of the star positions themselves, like Apex or Hampus or JT. So it is very important that your positions next to the role also match in the team, and this is something you should look for when you are recruiting players for your team. Some anchors will prefer the hard or the soft ones, some star players will want to play con or only short, and your AWPer has a different style of play. However, a lot of riflers are able to play more than one position, which makes it easier to piece the right formula together for your team. It's important to understand that this is also not one right way. A player like Robs, for example, will play maybe a full anchor position on one map and more of a star position on the other map. So it's really about putting the puzzle together for your team. When we talk about some other basic things, we'll easily get to the skill level. This is usually measured with statistics, from FACEIT ELO to HLTV ratings and metrics, team experience and achievements. However, as a coach, it is super important to understand the specific skills and working points a player has. Their game understanding, their macro and micro decision making, how do they use their utility, positioning, crosshair placement, reaction time. There is so many things that aren't always easy to measure, but define the skill level of a player. In your team, you will also want somewhat of a similar skill level between the 5 players. If the skill gap is too big, you will easily have some troubles. Another factor that is interesting here could be the age. And I tend to believe that a mix of experience between older players and some young, motivated, hungry players can be very good to get the best out of each other. Another maybe obvious but easy to forget is language. These days you have international teams or you have teams who just speak their main language. Both of them have ups and downs. The biggest issue main language teams come into is the lack of talent pool. If you have this select group of players that you can pick from, it might be very hard to find players from the same skill level that also play the right positions and that you haven't played with before. This is also a recent trend. Teams like Astralis and Big have recently switched to going international, something that Furia also did last year and panned out really well for them. However, I believe that teams that are all from the same region also have a benefit. While they might have the same culture of CS, it might be easier to communicate in their native language, they're also closely located for boot camps or tournaments, and might know each other for a while in the scene, which have led to a certain amount of friendships. So before building your team, it's important to think about all these basic things. They might sound obvious, but they are important in the long run. A second component that is really important is the tactical philosophy of the team. And this forms an important interplay between your in-game leader and your coach. Being on the same page about the playstyle and the philosophy is super important. So this is usually the first step. In these conversations, there's also a bigger role for the space taker and the AWPer, because they will have a style that might need to fit into this system. And ultimately, everybody will be involved and has to understand the system. When we talk about the tactics of Counter-Strike, there's a lot of factors we can discuss. First of all, you have teams who are heavy default leaning, teams who like to play more set rounds, and then there's a whole spectrum in the balance between the two. You also have the tempo of play, how fast teams play or maybe leave it more to the late rounds. You will have your systems with set rotations, reaggressions, also your stages, what do you want to take first, what map control do you value as a team, and what utility usage do you need. In this type of system, it will also be clear if you will play more heavy on lurks, how much freedom these players will have, and at what point you want to regroup to finish the round together. So it is all about having a similar game plan and being able to adapt mid-game as well. While every map does have its clear IDs and limitations, teams can still find ways to bring their own game style into the play and tweak it a little bit to their liking. Another element here is understanding how your opponent is playing and being able to adapt and change up your play mid-game. And this will really depend on the read that you have, either from your preparation or during the game. If you're noticing that the enemies are playing very heavy towards one area of the map, then you might be able to adapt to this. So this is very important when it comes to the tactical philosophy. A third element that will be extremely important in building your team and the sustainability of it is the team chemistry and everything to do with the mental aspects. Often referred to as vibes or being on the same page, which sound to very vague concepts for me. In my head, this comes down to natural chemistry between personalities, interests, and is something that can be either naturally there, but can also be worked on and developed or grown organically over time. Being on the same page is probably one of the most important metrics to predict if a team will reach its full potential, the skill level that they have, if they will be able to deploy that and improve over time. For me, this should be broken down into concepts that are way harder to measure, such as motivation. What do we want? Like, what is the goal that we have together? The second part is how do we deal with mistakes and feedback? This is super crucial to be able to improve. A third element is communication, and this is probably one of the most important things in Counter-Strike. You can win games with communication alone, but that means you can also lose games that way. Next to that, leadership and work ethic are also very important things in the team, and I could probably list 10 more factors, but that's to show how important the mental elements are when you build a team and you are competing on this level. For me, as a former psychologist, it is important to highlight that this process will take time and can be worked on, but fundamental misalignments can hinder your progress and performance, so it is really important to establish and talk about these things in an early stage. The last factor that I want to discuss is what I call the support system, and this is more of a facilitator. It doesn't have to be there, but when it's there, it can be really nice and helpful. Top tier teams usually have 5 staff members next to their 5 players. Teams like G2, Navi, Vitality, they all have a head coach, a team manager, and then they have an assistant coach and an analyst, as well as a performance coach, who is more involved with the psychology, sleep, diet, and activity of the players. Having this support system in a team environment can really boost your improvement very fast. It is way easier for players to have the right amount of help on every single of the elements. And then the last thing that is maybe not unimportant is having the financial support, maybe a bootcamp facility, and also tools such as Skybox or CS2 Lens. And in this era, it is also extremely important to have the capacities to go to VRS LANs, as they are very important in the current meta. This was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.